Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. How much do you value your health? You know, the likelihood that you might catch some life-threatening microbe, bacterium, or virus. Does it concern you greatly, or little at all? Are you secure in your homes this very evening that nothing from Asia can hurt you or your family now that Felon Joe is safely out of office and newfound tariffs are in place? I will state that each of us should be if the United States federal government is truly protecting its citizenry as the Constitution says it should. But what if What if there could be something sinister from Asia perniciously making its way into each of our American homes, something that could quite possibly harm you or your families, along with going completely unchecked by the government federal agencies tasked with our very welfare? Now, I know that the way the past 4+ years have gone, it is not too far-fetched to envision, but let me get down to brass tacks, friends and colleagues. I should preface this video by stating that as your trusted puppet reporting on the issues that matter, it is never my intent to stir up false anxiety or paranoia, and rest assured that is not my intent here. I mainly want each one under the sound of my voice alert to things that very much impact their lives and livelihoods. Opium wars. Ever heard of them before? For those of you possibly not in the know, allow this cloth and stuffing commentator to give a small primer in Asian history. Beginning in the 18th century, British merchant ships had decided upon the severely debased policy of picking up opium in India and delivering it to China at a profit. Despicable to say the least, but suffice it to say that masses of Chinese became opium-addicted junkies. In the spring of 1839, the Chinese government confiscated and destroyed more than 20,000 chests of opium, some 1,400 tons of the drug, that were warehoused at Canton, modern-day Guangzhou, by British merchants. What followed were years of back-and-forth battles between the Chinese and British, with France also entering the fray in 1856. At one point, and do not ask me the logic of this one, China was forced to cede the island of Hong Kong to the British, control that only recently ended in 1997. So as you can imagine, the Chinese were humiliated for a century and a half, that is until recently. Forced to hand over part of their land to an enemy bent on getting its citizens addicted to opium. That is criminal to say the least. Fast forward to today, there is something in full force called the fentanyl epidemic in America. A very deadly narcotic, fentanyl, is pouring across the Mexican northern border like nobody's business. Prince and Tom Petty both succumbed to fentanyl, along with myriad millions of other Americans, and it continues daily. What we are seeing is retribution from a crazed communist sociopath dictator named Xi Jinping. He is linking the United States to Britain and France, the former tormentors of China, and as such is punishing us accordingly. This, in his insane cranium at least, is sweet justice. Now I know what you are thinking, puppet, I have no one in my family or circle of friends who takes illicit drugs, so why should I care? Allow us to ponder that for a moment, beyond the rather obvious humane implications anyway. Alright, let's continue. Have you gone shopping for groceries in the past 3 years at any dollar store? Have you seen some lesser expensive food items on those shelves that look enticing due to their lower prices? Oh, but where do those originate from? Well, that would be none other than China, my fellow viewers. Yes, China. Everything from canned fruit to canned vegetables to mushrooms in jars and even cookies and candies line the store shelves of American retailers of late. Insidious, ticking time bombs. Do you trust an enemy dictatorship that holds visions of conquering the United States of America with feeding you and your children completely sterile and safe food products and even unlaced with potentially lethal trace chemicals or bacteria? Now, puppet. You've gone off the rails on this crazy train. Hold on a minute. You know how many canned or packaged food items that originate in the U.S. generally have a stamp somewhere on their labels from the U.S. Department of Agriculture? Well, take a glimpse at the labels of the items coming from China. Not any kind of sign that they have been inspected at the source for purity or cleanliness in the slightest. Remember back a decade or more when it made national news about many Chinese-made toys for young children actually containing lead-based paints, all while the United States government, supposedly sworn to protect your children from danger, looked the other way? So, what are the chances that China could potentially fight its modern fentanyl war with the West by poisoning its people with trace amounts of the drug, or any other nefarious narcotic for that matter? Ever heard of gutter oil? Travel to China if you dare, and you will see numerous street food merchants cooking fried items and offering them for sale to the unsuspecting public or victims. The key here is something called gutter oil. You see, in their misguided efforts to save money, many Chinese street merchants reuse cooking oil from street gutters. I'm not making this up, folks. Feel free to research it for yourselves. And there is no overarching Chinese health department or department of sanitation that would potentially inspect these food merchants and force them to stop the filthy practice. So, kids and cousins, what makes you think for a single minute that China would require any form of sanitary controls at its food processing factories? I, for one, am not inclined to sample their wares anytime soon. It is best we wise up before it is too late, loyal viewers, preferably before you or your friends or relatives are irreparably harmed by a sociopathic dictator in the Far East. Choose wisely the things you ingest, folks, especially when they come from suspect sources and sworn enemies. Good night, my loyal viewers, and sleep well.